And so our lead this hour coming from South Florida, fresh off of a debacle of a performance against the Packers. The Dolphins are yet again worthy of the Maller monologue treatment. Now, why is that? If you have not been paying attention, if you let your guard down because of the holidays, bad job by you. And you might have missed it. The news came out. We learned that Dolphin quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who burst onto the scene this year as an MVP candidate, then faded over the last month, that Tua Tagovailoa has made a return appearance in the concussion protocol. Whoa. After being eviscerated in the second half against the Packers on Sunday, Dolphin head coach Mike McDaniel, not looking like such a genius lately, announced on Monday that Tagovailoa would be going straight into the protocol. And they're going to put him on timeout, putting his status in doubt for the game against the Patriots coming up this weekend in the Commonwealth as the Dolphins try to figure out what's going on with Tua and also advance to the playoffs. The Dolphins claim that they are not sure when the injury happened. They don't even know when the concussion happened. McDaniel telling the media that nobody recognized anything in terms of a concussion. It's not like it was obvious the way it was in Cincinnati, that Thursday night game, when we learned about the fencing position. When you have a traumatic brain injury, you get into the fencing position, that your brain resets to like you were a toddler. I didn't know that before that went down back in Cincinnati, but nothing like that happened in this game. At least it wasn't obvious, and so it was something where Tua met with the doctors, and they discussed the symptoms, and that's how that went down. So this has led now to what? The media reaction machine bouncing around the echo chamber, and many prominent media figures calling for Tua Tagovailoa to step away from the NFL. Some going as far as to say he must retire. He should never play again. That this is a career-ending injury. The doomsdayers are saying. All right, so let us discuss the question. Let's talk about that part of the story first. So what do you make of very prominent people in the sports media who are now publicly advising Tua Tagovailoa to retire from the NFL based on this latest concussion? So I've got applause, chessboard, and mathematical truth. And we will combine all of these things together, and then we're going to shut up. But we're going to make the baba ganoush before we shut up. So to kick off, I would file the media part of this story, the shut her down, it's not worth it, go sell insurance crowd. That is a deja vu situation, and I'm not talking about the Gentleman's Club. It is a byproduct of the social media age that we live in. You get clout points online for these kind of sanctimonious statements. And what happens is you have the orchestra, strike up the band, la, 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 la. You got armchair psychologists, you've got social media therapists, brain experts trained on Twitter who have come crawling out from behind the refrigerator, and they have all the answers. And what I have witnessed here over the last not even 24 hours, less than that, is a public urination situation, which will make our friend Doc Mike very happy. But everyone and their mother is trying to one-up each other with these holier-than-thou decrees. The tabernacle of sports chatter, over the top with self-righteous media figures tossing out all kinds of gibberish about what Tua should do in terms of retirement. And my theory on this, and I want to run this by you, is my theory that many of these people, not all, but many of them, are looking to gain prestige, status on these social networks, and it's a way to grab the Twitter applause. When you say that I'm so concerned about Tua, how concerned am I? I'm so concerned I want him to retire. You get the proverbial standing ovation. The bravo, you get the bravo, and you get the chef's kiss, everyone's, oh, you're so good. You're so goody-goody. How great are you? You're such a better person. I don't see it that way. Now, furthermore, let's talk like reasonable human beings. How should Tua Tagovailoa handle the latest concussion? Puffery aside, Tua is an adult. He's a young adult. He's in his early 20s. So he's going to be given a diagnosis by the medical professionals. They will have recommendations on how to handle this. At that particular point, it's like sitting in front of a chessboard. It's your move, Tua. It's your move. And Tagovailoa will have to do what's in his best interest for him and his family. And it's not going to be what some wokester in sports media is telling him to do. Ultimately, he should do what's in his best interest. Now, I anticipate that he'll be cleared in the next couple of weeks. Probably not this week. They'll give him the game off. And then he'll want to play. And it's his decision at that point whether he wants to play. I think he will. But that's ultimately his call. And it's going to lead to pearl clutching from the usual suspects. And the NFL is a high-paying job. You push things a little further the more money you make. And Tua's on a rookie contract. It's a great rookie contract. $30 million, over $30 million, $19.5 million. He's already banked in the signing bonus. He's playing for a second contract. Now, the concussion does throw a turd in the punch bowl. It throws another variable in the mix because not only do you have questions about Tua as a performer, the last month he's fallen apart, he's run out of gas here, but you also have the fragility, the fragile nature of Tua, and that becomes a factor that you're going to have to overcome in a long-term negotiation. All right, now parting shot. The Dolphins, let's talk about the Komodo drag in the room. The Dolphins claim they did not know when Tua suffered the concussion. The head coach said that. Coach McDaniel said that. However, internet investigators, internet sleuths, were able to pinpoint what they believe happened. It was late in the second quarter before halftime, and Tua's head fell back and hit the ground rather hard, and that's the clip that many people have said, that's it. That's when it happened. So the question here is, why are these social media detectives better at finding concussions, it would appear, than the NFL eye in the sky? And the NFL has multiple people at these games that are there to monitor concussion. So I have some thoughts on this. This is a simple arithmetic problem, that it's multiplication on the side of the public. And I think we can agree on this, that you have hundreds, if not thousands, of eagle-eyed hall monitors who are watching these games, observing any improprieties that pop up, versus the NFL, who employs one or two people at a game, who's on the payroll, whose job is to keep track of this stuff, who may or may not be eating some nachos with that gooey orange cheese on top, or pretzels, or peanuts, or candy, and maybe watching with half an eye at the time the injury goes down. But never let a mathematical truth get in the way of the narrative. And as we have preached in previous shows from the bully pulpit that we happen to sit on here, the NFL is a collision sport. It will always be a collision sport, played the way it's played currently and the way it always has been played. It is first cousins with sports like rugby and roller derby and lacrosse and ice hockey, the meat and potatoes. The meat and potatoes for Tua Tagovailoa and all these other football players is, going in that you're going to get dinged up. You're going to get your bell rung. You know that going in. That's what you signed up for. There's a exchange, a quid pro quo, that you're getting paid a ridiculous amount of money to play the game. You know you're going to get beat up while playing the game, And there's also only so much that can be done to minimize the risk. That most things are reactive, they're not proactive, meaning that once you get the concussion, they're supposed to take you out of the game, but they can't prevent the concussion. So you're going to be tackled, and it is a two-way street. Like you're supposed to, in theory, come out of the game if you have a concussion, and you're supposed to go into the injury tent. Many players want to keep going, and they want to try to work around the concussion, and so that becomes a factor as well, where if it's obvious, where if you're laying on the field and they have to take your helmet off, well, that's one way to have a concussion, but there's oftentimes you get these concussions, and they're somewhat minor, and you feel like you can play through it. And obviously Tua, based on the video, thought he could play without missing a beat, and turned out that was not the case. But it goes back to the fact that everyone has a price, and you have to decide how many hits you're willing to take at that price point before you don't want any part of it anymore. And that's the decision that Tua is making right now, and other people who play the sport of football are going to have to make. But the idea, because some talking head on television is like, you got to retire, it's not safe, I need those online applause, help me out. It's like, no, come on. No, you're going to base it off what you hear. They don't know, these idiots don't know your individual situation and how bad it is, or maybe it's not as bad. So it's up to other people who are medical professionals to decide.